Is Thomas. Today I want to share my life story with you. It's a long story, but I hope you find it interesting. My life has been full of ups and downs, but I've learned so much along the way. Maybe you'll learn something too. I was born many years ago in a small village. Our village was surrounded by green hills, tall trees, and rivers. It was a peaceful place, quiet and far away from the big city. The people in the village were friendly and everyone knew each other. We didn't have much, but we didn't need much. Life was simple and we were happy. My family was big. I had 6 brothers and 3 sisters. Our house was small, but it was full of love. My parents worked very hard to take care of us. My father was a farmer. Every day he would wake up early to work in the fields. My mother took care of the house, cooked our meals, and made sure we all were safe. My father always said, hard work is important, but family is the most important. I never forgot those words. When I was a little boy, I spent most of my days outside. My brothers, sisters, and I would run around the fields, climb trees, and swim in the river. We didn't have many toys, so we made our own games. I remember we would use sticks to play sword fights and imagine we were heroes on an adventure. We would laugh all day long until the sun set, and then we would come home tired but happy. At the age of 7, I started helping my father in the fields. He taught me how to plant seeds, take care of the crops, and look after the animals. It was hard work, but I loved spending time with him. My father was a kind man, always patient with me, even when I made mistakes. He would say, "Mistakes are part of learning, Thomas. Don't be afraid of them." His words made me feel better, and I became more confident in my work. As I grew older, I wanted to learn more. Our village had a small school. The schoolhouse was made of wood, and there was only one teacher. All the kids in the village, no matter their age, studied together in one room. The teacher was strict, but he was also kind. He made sure we all learned to read, write, and do math. I loved school. It was a place where I could learn about the world outside of our little village. I remember being fascinated by stories about other countries, animals, and the stars in the sky. I wanted to know everything. One day, when I was about 10 years old, I came home from school and told my father that I wanted to see the world. He smiled and said, "Thomas, the world is big and full of wonder, but don't forget where you come from. Always remember your roots." At that moment, I didn't fully understand what he meant, but later in life, those words made sense. When I turned 16, something changed. Life in the village was beautiful, but I felt a strong desire to see more. I wanted to go to the city. I had never been there, but I heard stories from travelers who passed through our village. They spoke of tall buildings, busy streets, and people from all over the world. I wanted to experience that. So one day I told my father and mother that I wanted to leave the village and find work in the city. My mother was worried. She said, "Thomas, the city is not like here. It's big and you will be alone." But my father, though sad, understood. He said, "If this is what you want, then go, but be careful and remember the values we taught you." And so, with a small bag of clothes and some money my parents gave me, I left the village. It was a sad day. My brothers and sisters came to say goodbye, and my mother cried as she hugged me. My father patted me on the back and said, "Go make your way, Thomas, but never forget where home is." The city was nothing like I imagined. When I arrived, I was overwhelmed. There were so many people, so many buildings, and everything moved so fast. I felt small in this big world. At first, I didn't know what to do. I had no friends, no job, and very little money. For the first few days, I slept in a small room I rented in a cheap hotel. I spent my days walking around, looking for work. Finally, I found a job in a small store. The owner, Mr. Johnson, needed someone to help with deliveries. It wasn't a fancy job, but it was a start. I would carry boxes and deliver packages all over the city. I walked for hours every day, learning the streets and meeting new people. It was tiring work, but I was happy. I was finally doing something on my own. As the months passed, I made new friends in the city. I met people from all walks of life, people who had their own stories, their own struggles, and their own dreams. One of the friends I made was an older man named Samuel. Samuel was a wise man, much older than me. He had lived in the city his whole life, and he knew everything about it. Samuel became like a mentor to me. He would often tell me stories about the challenges he had faced and the lessons he had learned. One day, he told me, "Thomas, success is not about how fast you reach your goal. It's about staying true to yourself and not giving up, no matter how hard it gets." Those words became my motto. Life in the city wasn't easy. There were days when I felt lost and unsure of what I was doing, but I always remembered Samuel's advice, and I kept going. 1 year later, I saved enough money to rent my own apartment. It wasn't big or fancy, but it was mine. I felt proud of myself. I had come to the city with nothing, and now I was building a life. But I wasn't satisfied yet. I wanted more. I wanted to build something lasting, something that would make my family proud.
So I decided to start my own business. It was a risky move, and I was scared. But I believed in myself, and I was ready to work hard. I opened a small shop in the city center, selling tools and supplies to people who worked in construction. At first, business was slow. There were days when no customers came, and I wondered if I had made a mistake. But I didn't give up. I remembered what Samuel and my father had taught me: patience and hard work. So I stayed patient and kept working hard in my little shop. Slowly, things started to get better. People began to know my name, and word spread that I treated my customers well. My father's words, "Be kind and work hard," were always in my mind. I treated everyone with respect, and I made sure to give them good service. Soon, my shop became busier. More people came in, and I started making enough money to take care of myself and save for the future. One day, a man came into my shop. His name was Mr. Robinson, and he was a big contractor in the city. He built many of the new buildings around town. He was impressed by the way I ran my shop and asked me if I could supply materials for his construction sites. I was surprised, but I saw this as an opportunity. I worked hard to fulfill his orders on time and give him the best materials. Our partnership grew, and with his help, my business began to expand. Over the next few years, my small shop turned into a larger business. I opened 2 more stores in different parts of the city, and I hired more people to help me. It felt like my dream was coming true. I had built something from nothing, just like my father had built his farm back in the village. But even though I was proud of my success, I still felt like something was missing. I started thinking more about my family and the village where I grew up. I had been so focused on building my life in the city that I hadn't visited home in a long time. So one summer, I decided to take a break from work and go back to the village. When I arrived, everything looked smaller than I remembered. The fields weren't as big, and the houses weren't as